You ever sit around with a group of guys, a few drinks in, and someone throws out the question that suddenly silences the whole table? When do women actually want it the most? Everyone leans back like they've got the secret answer. The theories start flying. Younger women, obviously. No bro, it's when they hit 30. Nah, after kids they stop caring. It's all ego and assumptions. Nobody really knows. Everyone's guessing based on movies, memes, and maybe one lucky experience from years ago that they think made them an expert. I used to be one of them. Until life decided to prove me wrong. I was 34, fresh off a divorce that left me questioning everything. My choices, my masculinity, my worth. I started dating again, thinking I'd be invisible to the women I actually found attractive. But that illusion shattered fast. The women who came after me weren't 22-year-olds looking for validation. They were women in their 40s, even late 40s. And they weren't shy about what they wanted. They carried this mix of calm confidence and raw hunger that made every wild younger woman I'd ever met seem like she'd been playing dress-up in her mother's heels. I'm telling you, these women were alive. They didn't flirt to get attention. They flirted because they knew exactly where the night was headed. They didn't need compliments. They wanted connection. They didn't hesitate. They led. And that completely rewired my understanding of female desire. See, men are taught from day one that women peak young, that youth equals beauty and beauty equals desire. But here's the reality, a 25-year-old woman might look incredible, but half the time, she's still figuring out what she even likes. She's still carrying around the weight of insecurity, worried about how she looks, how she sounds, if she's doing it right, if she's being judged. She's trapped in her own head, trying to perform the idea of what passion should look like. Now compare that to a 45-year-old woman who's lived, lost, raised kids, and found herself again. She's not guessing anymore. She doesn't need your validation. She knows what her body craves and what kind of man can actually satisfy it. That's not confidence. It's liberation. Here's what most men never realize. A woman's sexual prime doesn't start when she's young and untested. It begins when she finally stops caring about what anyone thinks. Somewhere around 40, something inside her flips. The filters drop. The insecurities evaporate. All the good girl programming burns away. What's left is desire in its purest form, unapologetic, intelligent, and often overwhelming. I once dated a woman who embodied this perfectly. She was 43, divorced, 2 grown kids, worked in marketing. We were lying in bed one night after what can only be described as a full-body spiritual event, and she just started laughing. I asked her what was funny, and she said, if someone told me at 25 that my best sex would happen in my 40s, I'd have thought they were insane. Then she looked at me and added, I wasted half my life being polite. That line never left me. It's wild how we've been sold a lie about women's desire, like it's some countdown clock that expires after 30. We talk about female sexuality as if it's milk, not wine. But the truth? It matures. It deepens. It gets more complex and powerful. The older a woman gets, the less she performs and the more she feels. And here's the twist that nobody talks about. Desire isn't just about hormones, it's about space. Emotional, physical, and mental space. Think about the average 30-year-old mother of 3. She doesn't lack attraction, she lacks energy. Her body's young, but her mind is exhausted. She spent all day giving, nurturing, worrying. The last thing she wants at night is one more demand. She doesn't need romance, she needs sleep. Fast forward 15 years. Her kids are grown or self-sufficient. She's comfortable in her career or finally free from a bad marriage. For the first time in decades, her life is hers again. The mental fog clears. The constant giving stops. And underneath all that, a spark she's been suppressing for years reignites. That's when things get dangerous. In the best possible way. I've had dozens of conversations with women in that stage of life, and they all describe it the same way. It's like someone turned the volume up on my body. I didn't realize how much I missed wanting. I thought I was broken until I hit 40. They say it with this mix of awe and frustration, because society told them their sexuality would fade, not explode. A woman in her 40s doesn't just want sex. She wants to feel alive again. She wants to reclaim a part of herself that got buried under years of responsibility and self-doubt. And when that switch flips, she doesn't hesitate. She pursues it with focus, passion, and zero pretense. That's what men mistake for intensity. It's not that she's suddenly hornier, it's that she's finally free. You can see it in her eyes. The way she looks at you isn't coy or playful. It's deliberate. She knows what she's doing. She's done playing the game where she pretends not to want it. She's not auditioning for your approval. She's inviting you into an experience she already owns. Younger women often treat desire like a performance. They're still learning the choreography. Older women treat it like music they've been dancing to their whole lives. They move to it naturally, instinctively, without thinking. That's why when men finally encounter a woman in her 40s or 50s who's fully awakened, they either can't keep up or can't stop thinking about her. Because she's not playing by your rules, she's rewriting them in real time. And if you've never been with a woman like that, I'll tell you this. She doesn't ask permission. She takes what she wants. And the moment she decides it's you, there's no confusion, no mixed signals, no guessing game. You'll know. That's the difference between youthful attraction and mature desire. One flirts for attention. The other demands presence. So when people say women peak early, I just laugh. The real peak isn't when her body's tight, it's when her mind is free. Let me tell you something that most men never grasp until it's too late. Women don't lose desire with age, they lose patience. The difference is massive. Young women tolerate mediocre intimacy because they think that's just how it's supposed to be. Older women? They've lived long enough to know the difference between a man who knows what he's doing and one who's just repeating the same 3 moves he's seen in porn. And once they know that difference, they don't go back. I remember one woman I dated, 46, fiery, elegant, sharp-tongued. She said something to me that summed it up perfectly. Younger men think they're good because girls fake it. Older men think they're good because no one tells them otherwise. The truth is, most of you have no idea what women actually need. Then she smiled and said, "But I'll teach you, if you're smart enough to listen." That sentence hit like thunder. Because it's true. Most men aren't ready for the kind of woman who's done being polite. A woman who's learned to speak her body's language fluently doesn't ask for validation. She gives instruction. She knows which touches are noise and which ones wake her entire nervous system. When you've been with a woman like that, it ruins you for the rest. Not because of the physical part, but because of the honesty. There's no pretending. No ego games. She'll look you dead in the eye and tell you what she wants, not out of neediness, but authority. And that's what terrifies most men. See, younger women still tie sex to approval. They worry about being good enough. They're performing. But older women, they've done the emotional labor, they've raised kids, paid bills, buried parents, lost lovers. They don't have time for pretending anymore. That rawness, that certainty, is power. A woman in her 40s doesn't need you to think she's sexy. She decides she's sexy. And once she makes that decision, you either keep up or get out of her way. But let's talk about the real engine behind this. Liberation through experience. Because something profound happens when a woman crosses that invisible threshold between doing what she's supposed to and doing what she wants. For younger women, sex often exists under layers of performance, fear, and comparison. They're taught to look desirable, not to be desirous. But over time, after enough disappointments, self-doubt, and nights spent giving more than receiving, a switch flips. She realizes no one's coming to hand her permission to enjoy herself. She has to claim it. That's when the game changes. I once asked a woman in her early 50s what sex felt like at that stage of her life compared to her 20s. She laughed and said, "Back then, it was about proving something. Now, it's about feeling everything." She paused, then added, "I don't care about how I look. I care about how I feel, and how deeply I can make the other person feel." That, right there, is the evolution of desire. When a woman reaches that level of comfort, she's not driven by insecurity, she's driven by presence. Her focus isn't on performance, it's on connection. It's in how you breathe, how your hands move, how your energy aligns with hers. That's why when you're with a woman like that, it's not just sex. It's something primal, electric, almost spiritual. Men underestimate how psychological female desire really is. It's not about abs or money or technique. It's about how she feels when she's around you. You can be average looking, but if she feels seen, desired, and safe, her attraction will skyrocket. But if she feels ignored or taken for granted, even the most handsome man on earth couldn't light that spark. And here's the irony. Most women don't even reach that full awareness until their 40s. Their 20s are for experimenting, their 30s for enduring, and their 40s for awakening. That's when they finally realize desire isn't something men give them. It's something they generate and choose to share. I saw it firsthand when I dated a woman going through perimenopause. Most men think that's the end of the line, that it's all hot flashes and mood swings. Wrong. For her, it was like a second adolescence, only this time she had confidence instead of confusion. She'd text me in the middle of the day with things that would make my jaw drop. She'd wake me up at night like her body was on fire. It wasn't random, it was a floodgate opening after years of suppression. She told me something I'll never forget. It's not that I suddenly became more sexual. It's that I stopped holding back. That's the truth most men never see. When women hit that stage, it's not just hormones, it's everything. The body's chemistry, the emotional freedom, the mental quiet that comes when she stops worrying about being perfect and starts chasing what feels real. That's why women in their 40s and 50s can be more intense than any 20-year-old, because they're no longer divided between wanting pleasure and feeling guilty for it. And you can see it in the way they move. Younger women are self-conscious. Older women are self-possessed. Younger women seek approval. Older women radiate approval for themselves. Younger women play at seduction. Older women are seduction. But this shift comes with a cost. Because while her desire is peaking, her options are shrinking. Society tells her she's past her prime. Men her age are chasing younger women, and younger men often assume she's unavailable or uninterested. So she lives in this strange contradiction, more alive than ever, but treated as if she's invisible. I knew one woman, 47, stunning, smart, hilarious. She told me she hadn't been touched in years, not because she didn't want it, but because no one thought to try. Men don't see me, she said. They see the number, not the fire. When we finally got together, it wasn't just physical. It was like she'd been waiting her whole life to exhale. The intensity was staggering. It wasn't about lust. It was about release. That's the cruel irony. The most sexually awakened women are often the least pursued. Men think they want experience, but when faced with it, they panic. Because an experienced woman doesn't fake reactions or tolerate mediocrity. She knows the difference between being desired and being used, and she'll call you out if you confuse the two. And yet, if you're man enough to handle it, to actually meet her where she is, the experience will rewrite everything you thought you knew about desire. Because when a woman like that chooses you, she doesn't just give her body. She gives her full attention, her presence, her energy. And that's something no youth, no makeup, no filter can replicate. That's why older women aren't more sexual, they're more alive. They're not chasing validation, they're chasing truth. And when truth meets desire, the result is explosive. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most men will never admit, not even to themselves. They're terrified of sexually confident women. Not turned off, not disinterested, terrified. Because when a woman knows what she wants, there's no room left to hide. No space for bluffing. No way to rely on performance or charm. She'll see through all of that in a heartbeat. When you've spent your life believing you're good in bed, because women have been too polite to say otherwise, meeting a woman who doesn't pretend changes everything. She doesn't fake moans, she doesn't flatter your ego, and she doesn't reward half effort. She either feels it, or she doesn't. That level of honesty is rare, and it rattles men who've built their confidence on illusion. I've watched it happen countless times. A guy hits his 40s, gets divorced, starts dating again. He's used to the routine, some flirty texts, a few dinners, sex that feels more like a box checked than a connection made. Then he meets a woman his age who's actually in her prime, emotionally, physically, sexually. Suddenly, she's the one initiating. She's the one setting the pace, the tone, the boundaries. She's not waiting for him to lead, and that's when panic sets in. Because deep down, most men don't want a partner. They want an audience. They want someone who will validate them, not challenge them. But a woman in her 40s or 50s, who's lived through disappointment, heartbreak, and survival, isn't here to applaud your routine. She wants reciprocity, depth, awareness. And if you can't meet her there, she'll leave you behind without hesitation. That's why so many men retreat to younger women after divorce. They call it preference, but it's really fear. Fear of being measured against a woman who knows the difference between passion and performance. They'd rather be worshipped by inexperience than challenged by authenticity. It's not about age. It's about comfort. I've seen it firsthand. A close friend of mine divorced at 45 and immediately started dating women in their mid-20s. He bragged endlessly about their beauty, their energy, their admiration. But the longer it went on, the more hollow he sounded. He wasn't looking for connection. He was looking for reassurance. He needed someone who wouldn't expose how disconnected he'd become. Meanwhile, his ex-wife was rediscovering herself. She started traveling, working out, dating men who actually paid attention. When I asked him how he felt about it, he said, "She's acting like a teenager again." I just smiled. "No," I told him, "she's acting like a woman who finally feels free." And that's what most men never understand, that female desire doesn't die after marriage or motherhood. It goes dormant when it's unappreciated. You can't suffocate someone's sensuality for years and then call it a decline. It's not gone. It's waiting for oxygen. The biggest lie men believe is that women lose interest in sex. The truth? They lose interest in uninspired sex. The kind that feels mechanical, predictable, disconnected. The kind that happens out of obligation instead of desire. A woman who feels desired, appreciated, and seen will surprise you with how much she wants it. But make her feel invisible, and her desire will vanish, not because she's broken, but because she's done giving energy to someone who doesn't give it back. I remember one night with a woman I'd been seeing, late 40s, artist, divorced twice. We were sitting on her balcony after dinner, a bottle of wine between us, and she said something I'll never forget. "Most of my friends think their sex drive died in their 30s. It didn't. Their husbands just stopped seeing them." That hit me hard, because I knew it was true. Men love to talk about the wall, that mythical point when women supposedly lose their appeal. But what they never realize is that the wall isn't biological. It's relational. It's built brick by brick out of neglect, criticism, and boredom. When a woman stops being touched with curiosity and care, she doesn't become less sexual. She becomes self-protective. She turns inward. And once that happens, desire needs something far more powerful than physical attraction to come back. That's why the women who rediscover their sexuality later in life often describe it as waking up from a long sleep. They're not becoming sexual, they're returning to it. The difference is that now, they're awake for it. They're conscious. They're intentional. I think of one woman I met, 52, no kids, never remarried. She said, "When I was younger, I was chasing connection through sex. Now, I use sex to express connection." That one line sums up the evolution perfectly. It's no longer a tool for validation. It's an extension of self-awareness. And when a man meets a woman who's in that state, he has two choices: rise to meet her or run. The ones who run always say the same thing: "She was too much." But what they really mean is, "She made me confront how little I was bringing to the table." You can't fake depth with someone who's lived through decades of emotional weather. You can't impress her with confidence if it's fragile. You can't dominate her when she's mastered surrender. That kind of woman doesn't want control. She wants authenticity. And here's the paradox that makes her so powerful. She doesn't need sex to feel validated, which is exactly why her desire feels so real when it arrives. When a woman in her 40s or 50s wants you, it's not about filling a void, it's about expanding pleasure. She's not performing. She's inviting you into something raw, grounded, and real. But to experience that, you have to let go of everything society taught you about dominance and performance. You can't conquer a woman like that. You can only connect with her. You see, male desire often burns fast and fades. Female desire, once fully awakened, burns slow, deep, and enduring. It's the kind of heat that doesn't just warm you, it remakes you. And that's what scares most men. Because once you've been with a woman who knows, you'll never be satisfied with anyone who's pretending. So when men say older women are intimidating, they're not wrong. But they're intimidating for the same reason fire is intimidating. Not because it's dangerous, but because it demands respect. If you mishandle it, it burns you. If you understand it, it lights your whole life. That's the truth no one tells you. The kind of truth you only learn when you stop chasing youth and start appreciating power. The biggest myth about women is that their desire fades with age. It doesn't fade, it evolves. It changes shape, tone, and direction. It stops being about being wanted and starts being about wanting. It's not a decline, it's a transformation, from performance to power. Younger women are often at war with their bodies. They treat them like projects to fix, not homes to live in. They chase approval through perfection, the right angles, the right filters, the right reactions. Desire becomes something external, something that happens to them rather than something that flows from them. They perform pleasure instead of inhabiting it. Older women, they've made peace. They've seen their bodies carry life, pain, laughter, exhaustion, and survival. They've watched their shape change and learned that beauty doesn't live in symmetry, it lives in presence. When they undress, they're not trying to impress you. They're revealing themselves without apology. That kind of confidence is devastating in the best way. I remember one night with a woman in her late 40s. She was unhurried, grounded, completely at ease in her own skin. She didn't dim the lights or pose for approval. She simply existed, real, imperfect, breathtakingly human. I made a joke about her confidence, and she smiled, saying, "I spent 20 years hating this body. I'm done with that. It's mine again." That sentence, simple as it was, hit harder than any compliment. Because that's what liberation looks like, not arrogance, but peace. And that peace changes everything. When a woman stops fighting herself, her body becomes an instrument instead of an obstacle. Every touch becomes deeper, every breath more connected. She's not thinking about what she looks like, she's feeling what she is. That's the true difference between young and mature sexuality, awareness. Young desire is fast, impulsive, fueled by hormones and fantasy. Mature desire is slower but infinitely more powerful. It's conscious, deliberate, rooted in experience. It's not about chasing the high, it's about sinking into the depth. And yet, society refuses to talk about this. Because the idea of women being sexually powerful in their 40s, 50s, even 60s threatens the narrative that keeps the beauty industry and dating culture alive. The system thrives on insecurity. It wants women to believe they expire and men to believe they peak. It's a convenient lie that keeps both sides unfulfilled. But in reality, many women don't even begin their sexual prime until society tells them they're done. Their hormones shift, yes, but so does their perspective. They're freer, bolder, more honest. They stop performing for the male gaze and start creating for themselves. They know what touches work, what words matter, what energy feels genuine. And that authenticity, that unapologetic desire, is magnetic. I've seen women in their 50s outshine women half their age without even trying. It's not looks, it's energy. It's the comfort of someone who no longer asks, "Am I desirable?" but declares, "I desire." But here's the tragedy. Most men will never experience this side of womanhood because they're too busy chasing illusions. They run after youth, not realizing they're running away from depth. They crave validation more than connection. They want to be admired, not awakened. I've watched men brag about sleeping with 20-year-olds while their ex-wives, the same women they once dismissed as past their prime, are rediscovering ecstasy with men who actually see them. That's not a coincidence. That's what happens when one gender evolves and the other stays asleep. And I get it. It's intimidating. Because when you've spent decades thinking sex is performance, meeting someone who treats it as truth will shake you. She won't flatter you just for trying. She won't play small so you can feel big. She'll expect you to show up, not as a performer, but as a partner. That's where most men crumble. They confuse confidence with threat, passion with chaos, intensity with danger. But what they're really seeing is reflection, a mirror held up to everything they've ignored in themselves. Because women aren't the only ones who change with age. Men do too. The problem is, most don't evolve, they retreat. They cling to nostalgia, to the illusion that youth means potency. But true masculinity, like true femininity, matures. It deepens. It stops chasing validation and starts craving truth. That's why the connection between a man who's grown and a woman who's awakened is unlike anything else. It's not lust, it's alignment. It's two people who've stopped pretending, meeting exactly where they are, without the masks, without the games. And when that happens, it's volcanic. Because she's not there to fill your emptiness, and you're not there to fix her. You're both there to feel alive. I once heard someone say, young sex is about proving you can. Mature sex is about savoring that you can. And that's it. That's the whole story. Desire doesn't die, it just learns patience. It waits for a partner who can meet it without fear. So when someone asks me, when do women want it the most? I don't give an age. I give a condition. When they finally feel safe being who they are. When they stop shrinking to fit the world's expectations. When they stop apologizing for wanting more. And that can happen at 22, but it usually doesn't. It happens after life breaks them open a few times, after they've rebuilt themselves stronger, freer, hungrier. It happens when they realize that pleasure isn't something they owe anyone, it's something they own. That's the real secret men never learn. You can't make a woman want you. You can only create the space where she feels free enough to want on her own. And when she does, when a mature woman chooses to want you, it's not a flicker. It's a wildfire. So stop chasing youth. Start seeking depth. Because the most sexually intense women aren't the youngest. They're the ones who've lived enough to stop pretending, felt enough to stop fearing, and lost enough to know that pleasure isn't a luxury, it's proof of life. And if you're lucky enough to meet one of them, don't waste the moment trying to control it. Let it consume you. Because what she offers isn't just sex, it's awakening. It's the reminder that passion doesn't fade with time. It sharpens. It refines. It burns cleaner, hotter, truer. So no, women don't lose desire as they age. They just stop wasting it on the wrong men.